Happy New Year and welcome to my absolute first video in the year of the ox, and I understand that all of you must be incredibly busy celebrating the holidays with your family and your loved ones, so I will try to keep this video as short as possible. However, here in the studio and in the apartment it's just another day and another week since the Lunar New Year feeling hasn't really come here yet, although I have to admit, after Yuanyuan's latest baking video, we finished that cake in no time and I've pretty much been eating like oxes the entire week. But as we all know, even during the largest of holidays, there will still be news that needs to be reported. And as long as there's news that needs to be reported, there will always be a Lukas Engström here on YouTube to report them. But before we jump into the new news for this week, I actually have to take a few seconds and correct myself, since it turns out that something that I said in a previous video turns out to no longer be true. As I'm sure you're aware, news reporting isn't always an exact science, and sometimes something that appears to be 100% confirmed may with time appears not to be accurate at all. And last week, Mr. Lukas Engström sat right here in this exact chair, in this exact studio, and said this: that if you're putting quarantine, you are putting quarantine for a reason, and you have absolutely no excuse to leave your designated area. Unless of course you decided to have home quarantine in the King's boat down in Kaohsiung and then waking up one day with 10,000 people gathering outside trying to burn it all up. Then I kind of feel like you actually have a valid excuse trying to find a new place for your quarantine. Well, it turns out that another valid excuse for breaking your quarantine, which is something that has been reported about Taiwan in global news all over the world this week, covered by both New York Times and The Guardian, is if you get kidnapped. Okay, I know I should not be laughing at this. This is actually quite a tragic story, but it's also very hilarious, so what can you do? Okay, so this is how the story goes. Mr. Chen came back to Taiwan from Hong Kong and decided to spend his mandatory 2 weeks quarantine at a friend's house. As I understand it, Mr. Chen spent the quarantine all by himself until a couple of debt collectors showed up who mistook Mr. Chen for his friend. And to their defense, it was his friend's apartment, so I assume it is an easy mistake to make. They then, however, assaulted and abducted him and took him out from this apartment to get the money back, which they thought he owned them, although it actually was his friend who was in debt. Mr. Chen's dad then somehow got informed about this abduction, called the police, who quickly were able to locate Mr. Chen, who then didn't waste any time, since the Taiwanese police and government in general takes COVID-19 very seriously, immediately fined Mr. Chen 100,000 Taiwanese dollars for violating the quarantine. Except the fact that Mr. Chen got both assaulted, abducted, and probably traumatized for the better part of the foreseeable future. In terms of the quarantine fine, the story does have a happy ending, since the Taiwanese government, for the first time in history, actually revoked the initial fine. But just imagine being both assaulted and abducted for being mistaken for someone else. How unlucky is that? I'd say this is more or less as unlucky as the man who got fined 200,000 for importing pork into Taiwan. As you all should know by now, it is strictly illegal to import pork into Taiwan, especially if you do not declare it at customs. So why would you say that this man is unlucky? Well, this man came back from a trip to China where he purchased something called chicken cake, which turns out to be a Chinese delicacy containing sugar, salt, pepper, and pork. Something it does not contain, however, is chicken. Now, I honestly have no idea if this man knew what he was buying or not, and I for sure have no idea why they would like to name these pork cakes chicken cakes, but I would like to believe that this man was simply the victim of maybe a marketing stunt from the pork chicken cake manufacturer, and that this simply was an unfortunate result due to a misunderstanding. Okay, I think that is enough of unlucky and tragic news updates for this week, and I would like to move on to some more uplifting news, such as the weightlifter Guo Xingchun breaking her own weightlifting record. Okay, I will quickly move on once again, since I understand that not everyone is interested in weights. However, if you're one of those who actually have been waiting for the new blue MRT line down in Taichung, you may not have to wait that much longer. Because Taichung city government have now finalized the planning of the new MRT line, and although there's a lot of approvals and confirmation left, the people of Taichung are now one step closer to get a new MRT line between Shalun and Taichung train stations. It doesn't look like there's a plan on when exactly this new line will open, but assuming that everything is on track, which is a good thing to assume in general when we're talking about MRT lines, everything should be pretty streamlined from here, and the actual construction should be able to begin very shortly, assuming there is no monkey business involved, as it is down at the National Sun Yat-sen University in Kaohsiung. I don't think this photo calls for any concern. The background here is that the school is closed for the winter vacation. Looks like someone forgot to leave a door or a window open, and I guess the monkey has decided to sweep in, check if there was any unfinished paperwork or bananas left at the university before the winter break. But although this school and monkey makes for a cute photo, my actual favorite animal and company combination right now is FUHE Panda, who recently decided to invest an additional 5 billion Taiwanese dollars into FUHE Panda Taiwan. Now, this video is not sponsored at all, but I actually started using FUHE Panda myself just last week actually, and in addition to their food delivery service, which I thought was the only thing they had, they also have grocery deliveries and their own Panda Mart, which pretty much means that Lukas Engström will never visit a grocery store in person ever again, since I just ordered the entire weekend's food, which is 20 minutes delivery. So, FUHE Panda, highly recommended from me, especially their Panda Mart and their grocery shopping. Again, this video is not sponsored, but they do have a referral program, so what you can do if you haven't signed up to FUHE Panda yet, you can use the link in my description, and then the first 10 people who sign up and finishes a purchase will get 100 NT off their first order, and then afterwards, when you are a member, you can share your own link as well, and then you will get 100 NT for each order that you refer as well. And if you're watching this video too late and 10 other people have already signed up for FUHE Panda, then maybe it's time for you to subscribe to my channel and finally hitting that bell so you get notified as soon as I release new videos. Because let's face it, who wouldn't want to save 100 NT? Okay, to be honest, maybe the person who spent 54 NT to buy a pen and then ending up winning $10 million in the Taiwan uniform lottery maybe not be that interested in saving another 100 NT dollars by clicking on the link down in the description. But to everyone else, please subscribe, hit the bell and click the link below. And while on the topic of this lottery, in case there's anyone, most likely foreigner out there, who didn't know already, they actually have an app so you can scan these lottery receipts instead of checking the numbers one by one. If you didn't know already, and again, this is not sponsored, I don't know if this is the best app, this is just the app that got recommended to me. I don't know if other apps have other functions, use whatever you want, but if you want the link to this specific app, then again, you have the link to the iPhone version down in the description. If you don't use iPhone, then you simply have to check those numbers manually until you win enough money to buy a proper phone. Pretty sure using this app won't really increase your chances of winning, but at least it will tell you right away if you win or, well, more likely, when you lose. And speaking of losing, China lost to Taiwan for the first time in 30 years when comparing the two countries' economic growth year over year. As we all know, Taiwan has simply been outstanding throughout the entire pandemic and throughout the entire 2020. And with the entire year of 2020 finally behind us, the economists have now finished their calculations and discovered that Taiwan, quite unexpectedly if you would ask the economists in the beginning of last year, became the top performing country in Asia with a 2.98% economic growth. The leading factor to this economic growth is, which we have talked about in previous videos, the semiconductors and computer chips, which have just been put into gadgets all over the world, especially now when the rest of the world is starting to work from home. But I would also like to think that I have personally contributed with this studio and camera gear expansion that we saw during the entire last year. And as you all know, this would not have been possible at all without your continued support week after week. That you continue watching my videos, that you continue to watch my ads just a little bit longer. All my dear patrons who month after month continue to support me, simply so I can continue making more videos every single week. That was everything I had to share for this time. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Lukas, starts with L as in like, ends with S as in subscribe. Please do both, and see you all in the next one.